is kind of interesting, and I'm going to disagree with some of this. This is from CBSSports.com. One thing we learned about each team in Week 10. And for the Browns, what happened to the run game? Kareem Hunt is supposed to be the best number 2 running back in the NFL, yet he just had 6 carries for 9 yards, 26 carries for 67 yards, 2.6 yards per carry over the past 4 games. Cleveland just hasn't been effective in the run game as it has in years past. I don't argue about the Kareem Hunt stuff, but the Browns are averaging 5 yards a carry, have 5th most rushing yards in the NFL, have the 2nd most rushing touchdowns, 16, that's just 1 behind Philadelphia. I'm not quite sure what he means by they haven't been as effective in the run game as in years past. Run game hadn't been a problem.
Yeah, I think there might be some recency bias there. I mean, because they weren't, very good against the Dolphins.
Absolutely.
But it's not, I don't think, fair to look at this entire year as that. I think maybe it's some recency bias, some feeding into some conversation on Twitter about Nick Chubb should be getting more carries. But you look at the numbers, Nick Chubb, for the most part, with this past game, being an exception, it is pretty typical in the Kevin Stefanski era for him to get somewhere between 15 and 20 carries a game. You don't really see him go over 20 carries. Obviously, we know the whole thing since Stefanski got here is they don't want to wear Nick out, in the short term, in the, idea of a game and him getting worn out and not being able to be there at the end. And they don't want to wear him out for his career. We know the lifespan of running backs in this league. So that part of it for me is understandable. I think what gets a little bit frustrating is the fact, you look at a game plan like Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins put together, and they don't like to run the football, but they said, oh, you know what? This team can't really defend the run, so we're just going to run it at them and see if they can stop it. And sometimes I wish Kevin Stefanski and the Browns would do that more when they're facing a team. Again, the Dolphins are a perfect example. They had a pretty middling run defense coming into last week. And it's why don't you go out and just see what happens? Test it a little bit more, test it early. And then, of course, the problem, though, I think, in these games that, we haven't seen them use Nick and Kareem as much, they've gotten into big holes. And when you do that and you're losing, running the ball becomes a luxury that you can't afford. Wyatt Teller told me that earlier in the season. I think about it all the time in those games when those tweets start coming in. It's just a matter of you're trying to come back. You have to preserve time on the clock.
Yeah, and again, that's the catch-22 if you're a play caller. You want to run the ball because you do it well, but if you're behind, that works against you.